Perfect. That's exactly what I told my daughter-in-law, Madison, when she announced that 25 members of her family were coming to spend Thanksgiving at my mansion in Greenwich. I'm going to the Swiss Alps. You can cook and clean on your own. I am not the maid. Her face turned pale, as if she had seen a ghost. But what she didn't know was that the real surprise was only just beginning. My name is Dorothy Blackwell. I am 68 years old, the widow of an oil magnate, and for the last 5 years I've been treated like a servant in my own $8 million mansion. It all started when my son Christopher married this woman. From day one, Madison decided I was her personal employee. Dorothy, bring me a coffee in the Hermes mug. Dorothy, clean this up. Dorothy, cook for my yacht club guests. And I, like a fool, always obeyed, using my own card to buy organic ingredients she pretended she had picked out. I thought that was how I would keep my family together. What Madison didn't know was that very week, something I had discovered would change everything. That Tuesday in November, Madison walked into my gourmet kitchen as she always did, without knocking, wearing that fake smile I despised. She was dressed in a ridiculously expensive red dress, no doubt paid for with my son's money. "Dorothy," she said in that condescending tone she reserved just for me, "I have marvelous news. My entire family is coming here for Thanksgiving. It's only 25 people. Only 25 people. As if that were a small number. As if I were some machine designed to cook and clean for Manhattan's elite." I saw the malice glinting in her eyes as she laid out her master plan. She settled into my Italian kitchen chair, crossed her legs, and began listing them as if she were reading a shopping list. "I've already spoken with my sister Victoria, my cousin Elizabeth, my brother-in-law Marcus, my uncle Alexander. They're all flying in on their private jets. My nieces and nephews will be here. My second cousins, Victoria's children. It's going to be a perfect Thanksgiving." She expected my usual panicked reaction, but this time she was about to hear an answer that would leave her speechless. "Of course, you'll handle everything, the food, the cleaning, serving the tables." Her words hit me like physical slaps. Instantly, I remembered all the times I had prepared elaborate dinners for her Westchester Country Club friends, sophisticated 3-course events with imported appetizers, $300 bottles of Bordeaux, French desserts that took hours to prepare while she took all the credit, gracefully posing for photos as if she were the brilliant hostess who had orchestrated everything with her own perfectly manicured hands. I remembered countless nights cleaning up after her parties until 3 in the morning, gathering crystal glasses, hand-washing porcelain dishes because she didn't trust the dishwasher with such delicate pieces, while she slept in until noon in Italian silk sheets worth more than entire sets of furniture. I remembered vividly how she introduced me to her guests on the rare occasions I appeared during events. "This is Dorothy. She's absolutely brilliant in the kitchen." Never. "This is my mother-in-law, the owner of this house, who generously hosts us." Or, "This is the woman who makes all of this possible." Always, without fail, reducing me to the role of a specialized employee, as if I were a private chef she had discovered and hired. "We'll need at least 3 premium organic turkeys, those $250 ones, none of the cheap brands," she continued breezily, ignoring my unusual silence, gesturing theatrically with her flawless French manicured nails done by the private manicurist who came to the house twice a week. "And of course, that famous Belgian chocolate pie of yours, you know, the secret family recipe all my guests beg to learn. My cousin Elizabeth from Manhattan still talks about the one you made for my 30th birthday. My pie. My family recipe I had perfected over 3 decades, which she passed off to others as if it were her own personal culinary discovery. And of course, you'll have to transform the entire mansion," she went on, her voice taking on the tone of a corporate executive as she dictated to her luxury suppliers. "I want natural imported garlands on the staircases, absolutely nothing artificial or cheap, fresh floral arrangements in every main room, scented candles in every bathroom, professional warm lights in the gardens outside. every detail needs to be photographically perfect for my Instagram and TikTok posts. My whole family must see, without a doubt, that Christopher married extraordinarily well. Especially my uncle Alexander from Silicon Valley. He has incredibly high standards. She paused deliberately, her blue eyes shining with the anticipation of hundreds of likes, admiring comments, and shares she was already visualizing, along with captions about blessed family and infinite gratitude, she would type while I was completely exhausted in the kitchen. And naturally, she added, with what she probably thought was a maternal smile, "You'll wear that lovely professional outfit of yours, the navy dress with the embroidered white apron that looks so elegant and appropriate on you. And maybe those quiet little black shoes. We can't have my sophisticated family thinking we tolerate sloppy presentation or cut corners on important details." Professional uniform. She had called my outfit a professional uniform, as if I were literally a uniformed employee of the house, not the 68-year-old owner of my Greenwich mansion where she had been living rent-free for 5 years. She leaned back elegantly in the chair, legs crossed with studied grace, clearly waiting for my usual, "Yes, Madison, of course," followed by my resigned smile of agreement and my immediate rush to grab pen and paper and start detailed lists of preparations, like an efficient secretary jotting down a boss's instructions. But this time was entirely different. This time, something deep inside me had snapped for good, not out of sadness or resignation, but out of a crystalline, irreversible liberation. It was like a wrought iron chain finally breaking after years of being stretched beyond any reasonable limit, instantly releasing a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. For the first time during one of her instruction sessions, I looked her straight in the eye with a serenity that even surprised me. It was the calm that comes from an irrevocable decision already made, from a meticulously crafted plan already in motion. But Madison had no idea that I had begun plotting my revenge months before. "Perfect," I repeated very slowly, letting each syllable resonate through the kitchen, my voice carrying a tone she had never heard from me. As I watched her confident smile begin to crumble at the edges like expensive makeup melting under pressure. "It will be an absolutely perfect Thanksgiving for all of you, Madison, because I simply won't be here." Since I had discovered something that completely changed my perspective on my dear daughter-in-law, I already had a plan. 3 months earlier, while cleaning Christopher's office in our Greenwich mansion, a weekly ritual Madison had suggested to keep things organized, I found a forgotten folder among his papers, filled with bank statements, printed emails, and legal documents. At first, I thought they were work papers from his tech company valued at $50 million, documents about mergers or acquisitions that always cluttered his mahogany desk. But something caught my attention as I organized the papers into neat piles. Madison's name appeared again and again in transactions I didn't understand, not as a beneficiary of insurance or in official company documents, but in credit card statements and bank loan forms. That night, after they had gone to bed in their master suite, the same one I had seated when they married, moving myself into a smaller room temporarily 5 years ago, I returned to Christopher's office and reviewed everything meticulously. I sat in his executive leather chair, turned on only the desk lamp to avoid suspicion, and began to read each document with the focus of a private investigator. What I found chilled me to the bone and made my 68-year-old heart race in a way I hadn't felt since my husband's death. Madison had been spending money they didn't have, an obscene amount, credit cards in Christopher's name that he clearly didn't know about, with limits of tens of thousands of dollars. Personal loans using our mansion as collateral, something legally questionable since the property was in my name. And compulsive shopping sprees at luxury stores on Madison Avenue totaling over $200,000 in just the past 12 months. I saw receipts for Hermes Birkin bags worth $40,000, jewelry that cost more than luxury cars, haute couture pieces with price tags that made me choke, all financed secretly through a maze of credit cards and loans Christopher had never authorized. And that wasn't even close to everything. I also found emails she had printed, apparently by mistake, between her and her Upper East Side friends. Conversations that revealed a level of manipulation that made me physically ill. One thread, just 2 weeks old, showed Madison discussing strategies to manage Christopher so he wouldn't discover her spending. "Keep him busy with work," she wrote to her friend Sophia. "When he's stressed with the company, he pays less attention to personal finances." There was advice on distracting him with sex when he started asking about money, on redirecting conversations toward future investments, and, more disturbingly, on using my age and supposed growing confusion as an excuse for financial discrepancies. But the email that left my hands trembling was a thread with her sister Victoria, dated just a month earlier. In it, Madison detailed a plan to convince Christopher to sell our Greenwich mansion, my home, my sanctuary, my financial security, under the pretext of investing in our future together and upgrading to something more modern in Manhattan. In reality, as the later emails made clear, the money from the sale would be used to pay off her spiraling shopping debts and fund an even more extravagant lifestyle. "Dorothy is getting more forgetful," she had written to Victoria. "I don't think she would fully understand the financial details of a sale. Christopher trusts her opinion so much, but if I present it as a smart investment, a necessary change for our married life, he can be convinced. And frankly, that house is far too big for a woman her age. It would almost be a favor." A favor. She was planning to rob me of my own house and dared to call it a favor. There was more, much more. Plans to pressure me into modifying my will, strategies to gradually isolate me from my friends and financial advisors, even discussions about placing me in a luxury retirement community once I became too much of a burden, all while maintaining her facade as the devoted daughter-in-law and perfect wife. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake until dawn, processing the betrayal, the manipulation, the deceit, but along with the devastation, something else began to grow. A cold, calculated determination to protect myself. The next day, I began my own silent investigation. I hired a private detective, a discreet man my lawyer had recommended years earlier. I asked him to track all of Madison's financial activities. What we discovered was even worse than I had imagined. Madison wasn't just a compulsive spender. She had also lied about her job. Her important career as a fashion consultant was part-time, barely minimum wage, but she had been telling Christopher she earned 3 times that. Where did the extra money come from? From the secret credit cards, of course. But there was more. Madison had also been lying to her relatives about our wealth. She claimed Christopher's company was worth $100 million, that I had a vast fortune, that our mansion was worth double its actual price. All lies to uphold her image as a well-married, successful woman. Now, staring at the glow of my laptop screen in the darkness of my bedroom, I smiled for the first time in months. I had already taken steps they couldn't even imagine. First, I moved all my savings to a new account in a different bank. Then, I consulted my lawyer on how to protect the deed of the mansion. At 6 a.m., my alarm rang like an anthem of freedom. I rose with an energy I hadn't felt in years. I took a bath in my Carrara marble tub and began packing my Louis Vuitton luggage. Each piece I folded was another step toward independence. Each item I tucked away, a silent declaration that I was no one's servant anymore. Madison and Christopher were still asleep in their expensive silk sheets. I could hear their deep breathing from the hallway as I carried my Hermes suitcases downstairs. I had prepared a note, which I left on the granite kitchen counter beside the spare keys. A brief but precise message. I decided to leave early for my trip to the Alps. The mansion is in your hands. Enjoy your perfect Thanksgiving. Dorothy. What the note didn't mention was that I had made some additional preparations, emptying the pantry and the $50,000 wine cellar, locking away my family china, silverware, and holiday decorations. If they wanted to impress their wealthy relatives, they would have to manage on their own. My final touch was canceling the cleaning service Madison always took credit for. From now on, she would learn what it really meant to maintain a 12,000 square foot mansion by herself. The car arrived at 7 a.m. As the driver loaded my bags, I took one last look at the mansion where I had lived for 4 decades. A house that had once been my sanctuary, then my prison, and now would once again be my fortress. Because even though I was leaving temporarily, it was still my house, and I fully intended to reclaim it. The Manhattan Hotel was everything I had dreamed of during my years of forced servitude. A suite overlooking Central Park, 24-hour room service, and above all, absolute silence. My phone rang at 10:47 a.m. Christopher, of course. "Mom, where are you? We found your note, but why did you leave early?" His voice sounded confused, still sleepy. He had probably just realized the pantry was empty and no one was there to make his weekend breakfast. "Good morning, Christopher. I decided there was no point in prolonging the inevitable. You two have plenty to do to prepare, and I am very much looking forward to some rest." "But Mom, this is so sudden." Madison is, well, she's quite upset. Upset was an understatement. She had no idea of the true collapse that was about to hit her. The morning of November 22nd dawned clear, and my phone started exploding with calls. I woke to Christopher's first call at 6:30 a.m. I didn't answer. While savoring eggs Benedict with smoked salmon on my suite's balcony, I decided to check the voicemails. The first was from Christopher. "Mom, please answer. Madison is hysterical. We don't know what to do for 25 people at breakfast. The store only opens at 8, and the family arrives exactly then. We need urgent help. Please call us." The second was Madison, her voice completely broken. "Dorothy, I know you're angry with me, and I understand why, but please don't humiliate me in front of my family. They traveled from so far. My Uncle Alexander came from Silicon Valley. Victoria canceled important plans in Miami. I don't know how to cook for so many people. I don't even know where to start. I promise we'll talk later and fix everything, but right now I desperately need your help." The third was even better. Madison again, now sobbing. "Dorothy, I just checked the pantry and the fridge. Everything is empty. Why is there nothing? How am I supposed to feed my family? Where is the good china? Where are the table linens? Please, at least tell me where you put everything. Just that, please." Ah, yes. The late realization that running a household requires planning, effort, and real money. The delayed understanding that food doesn't magically appear in refrigerators, that tables don't set themselves, that decorations don't install themselves by enchantment. And that was when the unexpected twist hit. Between one call and the next, I received a notification on my phone, a declined transaction. A delivery driver had arrived early at the house with several boxes of groceries, ordered by Madison the night before to try to save face. But when he ran the card, the purchase, worth thousands, was rejected. Confused, he insisted on leaving the delivery, but the terminal wouldn't approve it. Madison, already panicking, crossed the garden in her robe, trying to convince him to come back later. Embarrassed, the driver called the house phone and, with no solution, left an automated message in my email, which was still listed as the property's account holder. Delivery not completed due to lack of payment. Lying on a spa lounge chair, I received the notification in real time. I smiled. Madison was not only facing an empty house, but now the public humiliation of seeing her last-minute restocking attempt exposed as a fiasco. The relatives would arrive to no food, no tableware, and, as if that weren't enough, with suppliers as witnesses to the collapse of the image she had built. This parallel incident, though self-contained, already announced the unraveling I had foreseen. At 7:15 a.m., the message I truly awaited arrived. A voice I didn't recognize, but one that carried authority. "Mrs. Dorothy, this is Alexander Whitmore, Madison's uncle. We arrived at the airport early and decided to go straight to your house. We expect to be there in 15 minutes. I'm very eager to meet you in person and have the conversation we planned. Perfekt." They would arrive at the height of Madison and Christopher's panic. At 8:20 a.m., my phone rang again. This time, I answered, "Mom." Christopher's voice was trembling, on the verge of a breakdown. "Can I talk to you?" "Good morning, Christopher." "Of course you can. How is your morning going?" "Mom, please don't do this. Madison's family just arrived and we have nothing to offer. Literally nothing. Madison is crying in the bathroom and I don't know what to do." "Did you explain the situation to them?" "What situation? How do I explain that my mother decided to travel right when we needed her most?" "When they needed me most? Not when I needed respect, understanding, or a simple thank you after 5 years of service. Only when they needed me." "Tell the truth, Christopher, that for 5 years you took for granted I would be your unpaid housemaid, and that I finally decided I deserved a vacation in the Alps. That afternoon, while enjoying a massage at the hotel spa, I allowed myself to imagine the scene unfolding. Madison and Christopher waking in panic, rushing to create the illusion of hospitality. And then, at 8 sharp, the doorbell announcing the arrival of a family ready to collect overdue accounts. My phone buzzed with a message from Victoria, the financially responsible sister. "Dear Dorothy, we just arrived at your house and the situation is quite confusing. Madison told us you left for an emergency, but we don't understand why the house looks deserted. There is no food, no Thanksgiving preparation, and, frankly, Madison's behavior is very strange. Could we speak on the phone?" The second message was from Alexander, his tone considerably more serious. "Mrs. Dorothy, I respect that you traveled for an emergency, but I need to understand what's going on. Madison cannot coherently explain why the food she promised isn't here, why there are no decorations, nor why she didn't know you would leave. This doesn't match the family picture she painted for us. Please contact me urgently." Perfect. It was exactly the opening I had been waiting for. I replied to both with a carefully crafted message. "Dear Alexander and Victoria, I apologize for the confusion. I was forced to bring forward my trip for reasons I prefer not to discuss by email. However, I believe it's important you understand Madison and Christopher's true situation before proceeding with any plans. The documents I sent reflect only part of the financial reality. If you truly wish to help Madison, I suggest a frank conversation about her spending and her unrealistic expectations of family support. Sincerely, Dorothy." I didn't wait long. 20 minutes later, the room phone rang. The front desk. "Ma'am, there's an international call. A Mr. Alexander says it's urgent. Please put him through." Alexander's voice was tense but controlled. "Mrs. Dorothy, thank you for answering. I need to ask some direct questions about my niece." "Of course, Alexander. I'm listening." "First, is it true Madison has been asking you to cook and clean for all her family gatherings?" "It's true. For the past 5 years, whenever you visited or she had guests, I took care of everything in my own home." "And when she spoke of elaborate dinners and perfect events, was she the one organizing them or you?" "I planned everything from scratch. Madison took the credit." There was a long pause. I heard voices in the background, Alexander arguing with someone. "Second question, are the financial records you sent us real?" "Completely real. They came directly from my son's personal files." "And does Madison know you discovered her debts?" "Until today, she had no idea I knew about the secret spending and the lies about her income." "I see," Alexander said, his voice now icy. "One more question. Why did you decide to leave at this exact moment?" "Because I got tired of being treated like a servant in my own home. Madison assumed I would cook for 25 people without even asking whether I was available or willing." The silence that followed was long and tense. Finally, Alexander spoke, his voice dripping with contained disappointment. "Mrs. Dorothy, my family owes you an apology. Madison has been lying to us for years. She painted a picture in which she was the perfect organizer, when in reality you were the one keeping everything running. She asked for financial help for Christopher's business when, apparently, the money was meant to cover her debts. Now we know the truth, and Madison will have very serious explanations to give. Alexander, if I may offer a suggestion, please. It would be healthy for Madison to face the natural consequences of her own decisions. She lived in a bubble where others solved her problems. It's time she learned true independence. I agree. And I'll add this. The financial support she expected from the family depended on responsibility and transparency. After seeing the documents and the situation, there will be no support. My smile widened. I understand. There's more. My brother-in-law Marcus, who was going to help with real estate connections, is furious. Madison asked him to appraise some properties, including your home. Did you know that? No, I didn't. He feels deceived, and the family's decision is clear. This perfect Thanksgiving becomes an intervention. Madison will have to explain every lie, every manipulation. A family intervention, better than I had planned. And the other relatives, do they already know? All of them. Tonight at dinner, the truth will be complete. The voices in the background grew louder. The situation was exploding at my house. Mrs. Dorothy, I want you to know, we respect you for having endured so much and for having the dignity to step away. Thank you, Alexander. That means a lot. The morning of November 24th dawned cold but clear in the Hamptons, where I had decided to make my great revelation. I calmly packed my bags and prepared for the final confrontation. Before leaving the hotel, I called my lawyer, Robert Wellington, one of the most respected in Manhattan. This is Dorothy. Are all the documents we discussed ready? Perfectly ready, Dorothy. The changes to the will have been notarized. The amendment to the deed is registered, and the new residency agreements are ready for your signature. Perfect. I'll see you at my house in an hour. Are you sure you want to do this on Thanksgiving, Dorothy? Robert, there is no more perfect moment. It's time my family learned the true meaning of gratitude. I arrived at 10 a.m. I opened the front door with my electronic key, and the mansion was silent. Dorothy? Christopher's voice sounded incredulous, almost hopeful. Yes, I'm back. He appeared first, with dark circles under his eyes. Behind him came Madison, a version I had never seen before. No makeup, wrinkled clothes, eyes swollen from crying. Then came the rest of her family. Alexander, serious and imposing. Victoria, holding a folder of documents. Marcus and Elizabeth, their faces marked by disappointment. Mrs. Dorothy, Alexander said, extending his hand respectfully, it is an honor to finally meet you. We deeply regret having to do so under these circumstances. The honor is mine, Alexander, and don't worry. Sometimes the truth must come to light dramatically. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Robert, my lawyer. Robert, thank you for coming. I believe we are all ready for the conversation we've been postponing for years. Robert entered, his presence immediately adding legal weight to the room. Good morning, he said professionally. I am Robert Wellington, Mrs. Dorothy's lawyer. I understand there are family and financial issues that require clarification. Madison paled even further. Why is there a lawyer here? Because after 5 years of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and total lack of respect, I decided I needed legal protection, I replied with icy calm. Legal protection from what? Christopher asked, genuinely confused. From your wife's attempts to use my future death as collateral for loans, from her plans to convince you to sell my mansion to pay off debts, from the unauthorized use of your personal information? Do I need to continue? Silence fell. Madison collapsed onto the leather sofa, finally realizing that her world of lies had completely fallen apart. Robert, I said, shall we proceed? He opened his folder. First, the changes to the will. Mrs. Dorothy has altered her will to ensure that this mansion can never be sold or mortgaged without her explicit consent, even after her death. The property will be transferred to a family trust that protects Christopher's interests but prohibits financial speculation. Madison began to cry quietly. Christopher looked shocked, but also, for the first time, genuinely ashamed. Second, Robert continued, the new residency terms. Madison no longer has unrestricted access rights to this property. Any visit must be coordinated in advance and approved by Mrs. Dorothy. What exactly does that mean? Christopher asked, his voice trembling. It means your wife can no longer enter my home whenever she wants, give orders about my food and my time, or assume I will be her maid. Christopher lowered his head. Alexander stepped closer to Madison, his voice heavy with disappointment. Madison, our family gave you opportunities, trust, and support based on lies. You made us unwilling accomplices in your disrespect for a woman who deserved our admiration, not our contempt. Madison had no answer. There's one more thing, I continued. You will repay every cent you borrowed with lies about my supposed inheritance. You will personally apologize to each family member you deceived, and you will learn to live within your real means, not in the fantasy you built at my expense. Victoria intervened. And if she doesn't, then she will face the appropriate legal consequences for fraud and fraudulent credit. Robert finished. I addressed the entire family gathered. For 5 years, I sacrificed my dignity because I thought I was keeping the family united. But I learned something important. A family built on disrespect and manipulation is not a family. It is a toxic structure that destroys everyone involved. The clock struck noon. Now, I said with a smile I had held for months, those who wish to stay for a Thanksgiving based on respect and true gratitude are welcome. Those who prefer fantasies and manipulations may leave. For the first time in 5 years, I was in total control of my house, my life, and my future. Alexander was the first to speak, his voice filled with genuine respect. Mrs. Dorothy, on behalf of my family, we formally apologize. We were deceived, but that doesn't absolve us of having participated, even unknowingly, in the disrespect you endured. Victoria stepped closer, tears in her eyes. Dorothy, if we had investigated Madison instead of blindly trusting, we would have discovered the truth much sooner. You deserved our protection, not our complicity. Madison remained on the sofa, sobbing, finally confronting the magnitude of her lies. Christopher stood beside her, but, for the first time, did not defend her. Mom, Christopher said, his voice breaking, I don't know how to ask forgiveness for years of blindness. You raised me to be a better man, and I failed you in every possible way. Recognition is the first step, son. Now you must decide who you want to be from now on. Robert cleared his throat. If I may, there are practical matters. Madison, you have 30 days to begin a repayment plan for the debts. You must also meet with a financial counselor who will document your progress, Marcus asked. And what about the legal issues? That will depend entirely on Madison's cooperation, Robert replied. If she complies fully and makes restitution, we may avoid criminal proceedings. Otherwise, Alexander checked his Rolex. Our family will leave this afternoon. This was not the Thanksgiving we expected, but it was the one we needed. Madison, you have our number. When you are ready to be truly honest, you may call us. One by one, Madison's relatives bid me farewell with respect, and her with palpable disappointment. She had burned bridges that might never be rebuilt. When only Christopher, Madison, Robert, and I remained, the weight of silence was almost unbearable. What happens now? Christopher asked. Now Madison faces reality, a real job, no part-time pretense. You'll sell the expensive apartment and learn to live within your means. And above all, she must stop lying. Madison whispered, Dorothy, is there any chance of forgiveness? Forgiveness isn't automatic. It is earned through years of choices different from the ones you've made so far. As the sun set that Thanksgiving, I felt truly grateful. Grateful for regaining my voice, my strength, and my dignity. And you? Where are you watching from? What would you have done in my place? Do you think her attitude was right? Have you ever gone through something similar with family, during a holiday, or while hosting at home? Tell me in the comments. I really want to hear your opinion. If you enjoyed the story, follow the account, like, and share it with anyone who'll relate. That helps me a lot to bring more scripts like this. Thank you for being here.